And we're back. So coming up is Valkyrie profile, Covenant of the Plume, any percent by Sniper Wave. So let's send it to him.
Look at that. It seems that we are live. So yeah. I guess we should just start this as fast as possible because it is very late at night and everyone is kind of tired. So can I get a countdown from the tech desk? So this is Valkyrie Profile, Covenant of the Plume. It is actually one of the last DS releases. It is developed by both Tri-Ace and Square Enix. You'll hear a few things that are that their companies are known for, like the ever so infamous Tri-Ace combat resetting music and the ever so popular tactic games from the Square Enix franchise. So if there was a way to explain this game, this is kind of a mix between real-time combat and a average Fire Emblem game, but it has a very unique combat system in that the characters all have one button assigned, a certain amount of range, and a certain amount of attacks that is dependent on their weapon. So yeah, this is just a tutorial fight. This fight has only one small thing that can happen to you, that can happen on the wolf. It is a very small chance to stun you and waste one engage, which is just about 15 seconds. For the rest, the prologue should just be very safe and just smooth sailing. So we'll see if Marathon Luck is alive or not. So about the story of this game, we have this character Wilfred. He lost his father to combat, which has been taken by the Valkyrie, his soul that is. And now he kind of wants revenge on the Valkyrie. So with this man Ansel, which is one of his childhood friends, he's been setting out. He's becoming a mercenary to cover the costs of the family and the hunger now that his father has been diseased. We'll get more to the story later. So the combat in this game is very unique. As I said, one of the most notable things about this combat, however, is that you get the chain attacks in real time. So what happens in combat is that you take your turn, you press all your buttons, things happen, and then the enemy takes their turn. But however, we usually just won't see the enemy having a turn for multiple reasons.
War will empty the souls of men.
So I guess I should also tell you about how the game has got to be a speedrun. This game used to be a quick route back in the days on the speedrun.com forums. I think SDA even. So it was basically a challenge to route this game as optimally as possible and run it within 24 hours. That brought the record down all the way to a 218 or a 217.59 by Claude. This has recently been beaten by Dragondark after a reroute of his own. That was a 159. And eventually, the reroute made by Huang and I was done. And currently, I hold the world record at a 154.53, I think. So you might think, why is this estimate 20 minutes over? So this game doesn't have confirmation prompts on most of the moves, and messing up can mess up the entire fight for me, meaning that I have to soft reset and waste about up to 7 minutes depending on the fight. So another thing about the combat, the overworld movement actually determines who gets to attack in your party. So if you attack on your turn and there are multiple allies in range of the enemy, you will all enter combat. And from there you can make some very interesting combos, which we will see later on in the game. But yeah, that was the first fight. It is fairly straightforward. There's no real tech to it, aside from us not using the quote-unquote main characters of the game, just because they are very low leveled at this point. So after the fight, story-wise, Wilfred gets hit up by a demon. He actually kind of dies, But his zeal and rage against the Valkyrie makes him great for a Covenant, more so an agent for Niflheim, which is basically the Norse version of Hell. And from there, the story begins. So right now, Wilfred lives. We do one slight thing in the menuing, which is allocate the order of the attacks. Wilfred's second attack knocks up and doesn't do all that much damage, so we try to prevent it from happening as much in the run as possible. So this is the second tutorial level. You only have Wilfred and Ansel in this fight, and this explains you a little bit about how sieging works. So sieging works in a different way than normal combats. They give you a boost on the meter in the bottom left, and it gives you a few other benefits. So higher increased chance of item dropping to getting more attacks from gems. But that mechanic we'll explain in the next combat. Also, this is, if there was any good time for donations, this would be now.
We sadly don't have any donations at the moment, but I can tell you who we are and why we're here. We are the Benelux Speedrunner organization streaming live from you to you from Blaal, the Netherlands, and we are here to raise money for the Dutch Cancer Foundation. Every donation you make, 95% of that will directly go to the Dutch Cancer Foundation.
Well, thank you for letting everyone know. So what just happened, I got some extra attacks. So attacking an enemy from behind stuns them. If an enemy is stunned, the first attack afterwards has a 100% chance to drop a red gem. The second has a 50% chance. The third has a 25% chance. And all other consequent attacks have a 10% chance of dropping a red gem. These gems give your character an extra attack for this combat only. And, well, more attacks is more damage, so we tend to use it a lot throughout the run.
The battle is won.
So yeah, there's just a bunch of text prompts here as well. It is a tutorial. There's really not much to tell here. So if you have anything else to say, then feel free to.
I could give a quick word for our sponsor, ViewSonic, who supports the event with several monitors for the streaming area as well as practice monitors. Obviously with minimal latency for speed and accuracy. They simply understand gamers and want to show their support to continue BSG and spread the love to gamers in Europe.
So this is the first fight of the prologue. Basically, this garrison full of mercenaries is in problem, and Wilfred has been tasked to use his plume, which has now become the Destiny Plume. And this is the main mechanic of this game. These are kind of your get out of jail free cards. So using a plume makes it so that the character that has been chosen by the plume will have a 10 times stat boost on every single stat, including HP. And on the other hand, it will be sacrificed at the end of the combat, meaning you will not be able to use it again throughout the rest of your playthrough. And as you can see, Ansel is basically wrecking house on these demons. So yeah, we just end our turn here. The reason we do is we can actually get into the range of the demon, but it is actually faster to reset the turn, just because of how long the attack animation of the demon is. So instead of waiting for a counterattack, we just wait up the turn and engage on him. It is usually faster to engage first. That depends on how many counterattacks we can get in a turn and how much we can save later on. And yeah, that was the end of the prologue. Quite a decent time as well, it seems. So yeah, this is where Ansel kind of dies to the Plume. Wilfred gets scared by what happened. He thinks it is his fault, and he runs away. So we'll actually be saving the game right here. There's a very, very little chance that I die in the next fight. It requires me to get crit 3 times in a row. The crit chance being dependent on the... I think it is the hit stat of the enemy and your resistance. But first we get to mash through a lot of text, which is the other main mechanic of this game, which is sin. So if you kill an enemy, we just don't let them be at 0 health. We go on and just overkill them, so to speak. Doing that gives you sin. Getting enough sin in a fight gives you rewards, depending on how much you do. There's 3 tiers of rewards, that being the 100%, the 150%, and the 200%. There's also something that happens if you don't get enough sin, but we'll get into that later because we will be using it throughout the route a few times. I got bad turn order as well. So the good turn order is when the swordsman goes first. They will always attack Sharifa when posed like this, but since the swordsman cannot be counterattacked by Sharifa because she is an archeress, and the animation of the sword swinging is way shorter than the mage casting her entire spell. So this wastes about 8 seconds, and it is completely up to luck. Another thing that the pluming of Ansel did, I forgot to tell, was that it gave Wilfred an ability. So pluming a character also gives Will an ability, which he can use once per turn. Ansel gives us Vali's Awakening, which doubles all Wilfred's stats for 2 turns. Basically making him a temporary powerhouse. So here's another instance of the stun. We only need about 70 sin from this guy to be absolutely safe. I think you can still clear it if you're lucky enough, if you even get 0, but it is so uncommon. Like, it's almost impossible to not get less than 70. Or it'll get less than 70. So there are some riskier alternative strats to this fight. You could also engage the mage first and not have her cast the spell on the counterattack. However, that does open you up to getting stunned. And the moment you get stunned, this fight, basically, things hit the fan. So we just don't do it for safety right now. And that's kind of the thing with this game. Like, it is a very fickle balance between how safe you want your route to be and like how much time you would like to save. Also, we got the good drop from that swordsman. He just dropped the Viking sword. It isn't a real problem if it doesn't drop. We can just buy it from the shop after this fight. But equipping it in this fight makes it so we can get a little bit of extra sin.
The battle is won.
So yeah, we can just use our turn to equip the Viking sword, then attack the archers with Sharifa. And then that should be the first fight of this chapter.
Not bad if I do say so myself.
So yeah, there is an option to turn off the voices. However, what that does is that all the monsters which do not have voice lines will actually have a longer animation on death. And in this category specifically, it actually wastes time to turn off the voices. So at least you can enjoy the pretty decent voice acting done for this game. There are a lot of like big voice actors involved. For example, Yugo, which we saw in the prologue, also does a voice in the dubbed version of Dragon Ball Z, I believe. So yeah, this is 1-2. This is the only fight in this entire game that is not completely consistent, and there is no guarantee of us getting enough sin. It is very unlikely. There's a lot of backups. This route is also like split depending on what happens on the first enemy, so we'll just have to see what we get and just go from there. So we're just gonna use 2 items from the last fight because we got 200% sin. We also got 2 ambrosia. What that does is that it can give one character 100 max health permanently, but they are a one-time use. This fight actually has a very small chance of Wilfred dying, so that's why we use it on him. Ooh, we're gonna have to go for the risky route. So the way we route this fight is depending on if we crit this guy or not, because that actually like very much impacts our sin gain. And we need 150% sin for this fight, which is 195 sin. And that can actually not always be achieved if we're unlucky enough, so... If that doesn't happen, then... Oh, world record's basically that, but oh well. That's why the estimate is as generous as it is. There is 4 more things that need to go wrong before that happens, though, so... I think, like, we should be fine. Famous last words. If only we had wood to knock on. So yeah, I skip counterattacking by pressing start. That is able to happen in any fight where you can counterattack. If you cannot counterattack, the combat will end on its own. So another reward we got from the last fight and the 200% sin are the flare gems. So a gem or a crystal later on in the game are basically your one-time use spells. They do a lot of damage early on. So we basically use it to one-shot these archresses because fighting them actually takes a lot of time. And killing them in the one go is just very, very fast.
What did you expect?
So yeah, story-wise, Wilfred, while running away, ran into Sharifa. She was being tracked by a bunch of assassins. So from there, we just fought the assassins off. We're temporarily traveling together because she is trying to run. And now we are fighting the trackers, including Loxwell, who is apparently the leader of their party. So this warrior is the second part that can go wrong. He can actually give you somewhere between 0 and 100 sin, depending on how many gems you get. And if we get a very low amount, we need to go for the last thing in terms of backups, but I think we should just be fine. We get about 30 sin, that's usually enough to just go on. Ooh, that is very stingy. This might be something.
For you, Father.
It should still end well. This is going to be very close, though. So for this turn, we're gonna move in a very specific way with Sharifa. So we're trying to avoid the aggro range of these two, this warrior and this swordsman for as long as possible, just so they can move up in a pattern that we want. So if Sharifa moved up one further, the warrior would aggro on her and would attack. So we're just gonna move Wilfred one more space just so they can get into position for us. See, with those being in this specific position, we can actually use Volley's Awakening. Which, again, just doubles Wilfred's stats. It's safer here. Okay, so that's 100. 100 sin is the maximum you can get. It basically requires you to do full damage. For every % of his maximum health that you do, after his normal health bar is depleted, is the amount of sin you get. So we need 50. Don't think I can counterattack him. So we're gonna have to take an extra engage, and from there we should be good. Wilfred should just be living everything right now. I mean, he has doubled stats and everything, and he cannot be stunned. So stuns in this game are cancelled by knockups or getting enough hits or waiting enough time. So the AI is not gonna wait you out. They might get enough hits to cancel the stun, and Nox will always Nox up in this case, meaning that we'll never get stunned. So stunning is also a way to prevent counterattacks. We'll be abusing that if all else fails sometimes. Like, usually we would just attack Loxwell with Wilfred here, but since we need to kill this warrior with both of them just to get optimal rewards. Yeah, this should be 50. I think we should be fine in Sin now, which is very good. This fight can go anywhere. I've seen this fight like wreck me completely, and I've seen this fight just give me 200% Sin out of nowhere. Like, it's basically a toss-up. But it looks like we are at 195, meaning that we can continue this entire playthrough in one go. Which is very nice, because this is basically the biggest obstacle in this entire run. And this is also the last fight of Chapter 1. So this is kind of where the story picks up again. Basically, after this fight, we find out that Loxwell is Sharifa's father, and that he was trying to protect her as much as possible. So we get a small family reunion going on. Eventually, they both just join us in our journey, and from there, yeah, we'll just be going on. Also, we are helped by a maid named Aleph. She is actually sent from Niflheim in order to guide us on our journey of redemption. She has taken the form of a maid just to appear more helpful, and she sent us back to home just to talk to the girlfriend of our now deceased best friend. So we basically tell her that he is elsewhere right now, because we really don't know what to say, and we'll just continue. So these 3 paths all lead you to a different story and a few different fights. We take the top path. It is the safest path. It is also the fastest path, and it gives us access to, well, 2 of the most useful characters throughout this speedrun. There's really no other characters to go for. It just saves a ton of time. It also puts us directly into the next fight. So for that, we'll be using this exact deployment. And we shall swap Wilfred's attacks. So the reason we swap Wilfred's attacks is because we do not want Sin. And on the last hit, any damage you do over the health bar will not be taken into account. Basically, so if the enemy has 1 HP left and we do 500, we still do not gain any Sin from it. And that is exactly what we want in this fight. We'll also be using the Might Potion directly on turn 1 that we got from the last fight. Those Might Potions are the exact reason we need the 150 Sin. These are required for this fight and the very final fight of the game. Without the Might Potion, that fight actually can become impossible, so we just had to route around it, and Might Potion was just the most efficient way to go. So yeah, this is one of the cases where having voices on would be slower.
For you,
The
Father.
these enemies do not have voices. None of the monsters in this game do. So they'll play a default animation without any other sound. And putting the voices off for some reason really bugs out the game. Like, it kind of acts like there would be a voice, but there isn't. And for some reason that makes the animation take like a few seconds longer for every time that happens. So this fight actually got a major overhaul from the old route. We actually used the Plume Sharifa in this fight. We plumed her because, well, she is kind of a mediocre character in terms of stats and damage. And her Plume ability is actually really useful throughout the run. So this is also one of the two more prominent types of missions. You have the kill the leader missions, which, as it would think, actually requires you to kill the leader. So technically, you could only kill the leader and just win the mission. And these are the kill all enemies missions. Usually they are monster related, because as it turns out, monsters don't really care if their leader dies. Just completely understandable. I've been getting lucky on these evades. So evades in this game are based on two stats. One of them is the hit stat of the character attacking, and the other is the avoid stat of the character defending. I don't know how the percentages work exactly, but it seems to be pretty low no matter what you do, unless the stat difference is insane. Which is why whenever something is or someone is plumed, you will always see them evade an attack. So this is another case of AI manip. We're going to be moving these in a specific way to get this bat in a very specific tile that we like. This bat can actually, if you don't do this properly, the bat has a chance to float over the void, basically making himself untargetable for our swordsman, which is our main source of damage in this playthrough. And this combat shows you the other way to stun an enemy, if I can pull it off correctly. So, knocking up an enemy and then knocking them down with certain attacks also guarantees a stun. The stun, again, gives us the extra attack we need to exactly kill this enemy. Even if we get the minimum amount, which we did, it's still an exact kill. And knocking up all enemies, or attacking mid-air enemies, also gives you a chance to drop a blue gem. These increase the experience you gain by 5% for each one that drops. Those are a lot of gems dropping. That is quite insane to see a character with 5 attacks left.
Always the reek of blood.
So what you saw pop up there is the Soul Crush menu. You get this menu to pop up whenever your combo gauge and the soul gauge in the bottom left corner reaches 100. So when it reaches 100, a character can use a Soul Crush once per combat, basically unleashing their most powerful attack. They deal a lot of damage, and they give you a good amount of gauge back. So basically that means you can chain them very, very often. So yeah, this bat has to attack Sharifa. If we move Sharifa in any other tile but this one, he will actually float over the void and wastes like a turn and a half on us just not being able to kill him. This bat is quite the dingus. Any flying enemy really is in this game sometimes.
Firestorm.
We'll see our first Soul Crush next fight, guys, don't worry. Too bad we'll skip through most of them because this game is very well animated. Like the devs have done an incredible job on just like optimizing the DS's graphical limitations. Like even the intro cutscene just looks breathtakingly good. Thank the Lord, man. This luck has actually been like fairly good so far. This Aiello can actually crit and kill Sharifa, basically making us waste a Union Plume. It is just a 10-second time loss, but every little thing is welcome.
Firestorm.
Yeah, this is where we'll see our first Soul Crush. And as you can see, he went from half to basically dead.
How does it?
So the way you get a Soul Crush to be available on a character is depends on your weapon. If your weapon allows for the SP stat to pop up in the character screen, you will be able to use yours. Mages do not have their own character-specific Soul Crush, but they do have Grant Magic. This is dependent on the spell you use, and they all have a certain element. So we'll be visiting a small town here. Story-wise, the Crown has just invaded the rebels, and we're gonna have to fight against them. We're finding some random people here that just want to have their earnings by killing people from the resistance. So we're just gonna casually join them. Oh, this should be the same. Yeah, this is the same. So every fight has a very specific deployment. The deployment determines in which bases they are. Also, you might see that that blue Wilfred clone over there. We're gonna try to avoid him with combat by just moving Sharif over here. Get him in. So he shouldn't attack Sharifa here, and we can just continue our turn. There's a small chance he might, and oh boy. Oof. This might be very bad. Yikes. Oh boy. This is not okay. Marathon luck, everyone. What do I do? I think I still have a Union Plume to use. I should be fine. Did I? Yeah, because I got one on 1-1. Should be fine. So yeah, we're just gonna Plume Sharifa here. This was all intended. So the Union Plume revives a character that has fallen. It also puts it in the space in front of you. And what the developers haven't noticed is that it actually makes you able to do that over a wall. So the height doesn't really matter. So we're just gonna cheat Sharifa over this wall, avoiding half of this combat, and just get our very, very easy 150% sin. Which is why we attack the Swordswoman first. That gives us the magic bangle after this. This ups a character's magic stat by 25%, basically making a mage extremely powerful. Also, another funny thing is that it doesn't trigger the aggro zone of this sorcerer. So he's not paralyzed, but he also isn't moving. I'd like to think that he's just like very much baffled to what just happened to his colleague. And he's just like giving up. So yeah, that was this fight. We completely used this death abuse. We used to do that on another fight as well, but we found a faster strat for it. So I'm really happy we can do that at another time. So yeah, Sharifa dies after combat. Loxwell is basically griefing, but he's fine. He'll manage for like most of this run. So in this fight, we'll only be using 3 characters. Those being Loxwell, Darius, and Wilfred. Wilfred is actually forced to be used on every single fight because he is the main character after all. I will also be teaching Loxwell Frigid Damsel. This won't be used yet, but it just nice to have it already. And we'll also be swapping Wilfred's attacks back to where they were. Yeah, they should be it. So this fight is one of the Kill the Leader missions. It is also a character that you can actually play if you take a different path. But since this path is fastest, well, that speaks for itself.
Is there time for a donation?
There is.
We got 20 euros from Mitchie saying, here to promise 50 for the 3 ice treasures and a little extra because I didn't actually finish the run. I hope you all enjoyed it nonetheless. I sure did. Been a blast hanging out with the ESA chat and the guys here at the venue. Let's smooth out the hiccups we've had, kick the stomach flu's butt, and onward to another annual. Donation goes to Sniper Wave's choice.
Ooh, what is the first incentive coming up from now?
Let me check real quick. That is bonus track in Millennium Races Y2K Fighters.
Ooh, let's do that one. That sounds very interesting. So this combat actually shows us how important the raids are. Some of the characters have a raid-specific ability that just gives you some certain thing, gives you a stat boost, but reduces others. So Darius is very special. It ups the damage of all your swordsmen at the cost of lowering their resistance. So it basically makes you a glass cannon temporarily. And since Wilfred just used volleys, he's basically a monster. And with this boosted attack, it only gets worse. Basically making us able to kill this very high HP boss in one go. If this fails, we could still use Loxwell to clean up, but it usually just isn't even required.
For you, Father.
And yeah, that was chapter 2. Also, for some reason, whenever Loxwell dashes, he uses the quote, "I never miss," but I've never seen someone miss a dash, so he's technically correct, I guess. So we're going back to Torque, which is Wilfred's hometown. We're actually gonna visit our home, only to realize that Wilfred's little sister has also passed away from an illness because her mother couldn't provide for her anymore. So Wilfred only gets a little bit, he only gets more furious throughout the route. And that actually is determined by the path you take. And this game has 3 paths. The path you take is dependent on how many times you plume a character. If you plume 0 characters throughout your playthrough, you get to go to the 8th path, which is a very, very hard path on its own, and the final boss is just insanely difficult, especially on your first playthrough. And then the B path is taken on using as 1 plume, but I mean, plumes are pretty fast, right? Ooh, I forgot some shopping. Nice. So if we plume a lot, it's basically a get out of jail free, but it is also a very fast fight whenever we plume. So We're just going on the C path. It's basically the worst ending we could get, but it's the fastest ending, so it's all good, right? That's what speedrunning is for. So yeah, so we basically heard about a Saintess who has been trying to remove some monsters from these ruins. So we're just gonna help her out for a while. We're also gonna use the few codexes we just bought on Loxwell. So codex are mages are mage exclusive. Wait, I'm blanking. Yeah, they're mage exclusive abilities. They all have their own effects. Some are attacking moves as well and can be set in the combat. They can also use their spell as a field spell whenever they like, as long as they know the ability. We'll actually be using that a little later on. But most of them are just utility, like just reinforces, which basically increases the stat by 50%. And, well, giving more damage to anyone never really hurt, did it? Oof, this is bad though. Okay, so I did forget some menuing. There's a lot of things to do, and being tired and giving commentary really isn't helping. This fight should be fine though. We should still be able to get the maximum amount of sin no matter what.
How does it?
It's amazingly relevant for the next fight, because in the next fight we need a very specific amount of sin. And for that, we need different equipment on a few characters.
Father.
And we need them to be able to dash. Darius being one of them. This fight is also a good example of how little counterattacks we try to get whenever. Ooh, this might actually be kind of bad. I should still be fine. So usually we try to get this beetle to aggro Darius, just so he's a space higher up. This is only to make Wilfred's movement a little easier. Okay, this should work. So we're gonna volleys here. We're gonna get Loxwell into range of this beetle. And then spell reinforcing himself.
Spell reinforce.
Darius should be fine as is. We don't even... Oh, Rosie has to move down as well. That's a thing. So, this... the reason why we stun the enemy as well, it's actually very minor. But the spell that Rosia has by default is actually a knockdown attack. Meaning that we can chain it with the Firestorm from Loxwell. And that actually gives us a knockdown combo and allows us to just get a stun and just murder him with Wilfred. So the idea is that Wilfred would be one space higher up and he would be able to walk right in between those beetles, where the second one did not even get aggroed. It's kind of an issue because volleys will run out. So yeah, and just like any other RPG, there is recolors of enemies because why not? They're usually stronger. This game is no different. I'm actually gonna try and get the full 100 off of this guy just to be safe with Sin. Nice crit.
For you, Father.
So yeah, I feel like this beetle might actually go in range of Wilfred. I'm not sure what he does. He does not. Okay, that means I'll just waste an extra turn. That's fine. See, that just shows you how like execution heavy the game is. Like if you forget a single thing, it can just roll out of control and just waste like multiple minutes out of nowhere. So I actually do no longer care about how much sin I get off of this beetle. The only thing that really matters in this fight, not combat, is that we get 200%.
For you.
This gives us a very much needed item for the next fight in order to get enough sin. And that fight actually does unlock something very, very good for us. See, apparently there's someone at the castle that is waiting for us, so we'll just pay them a visit and probably just murder them on the way, because that's what this game has been about so far. Actually, let's do this first before I forget. See, Darius and Gwendol are supposed to have dashing for this fight. It is a very forgettable thing to just forget, like, setting one attack or forgetting an item, and that can just completely, like, screw up your run. So he needs the Grand Sting, which you got from last fight. Okay, that's already set. So this fight is a, I have a history with this fight. And I'm gonna need the tech guy, maybe, to remind me to use Might Reinforce. I am forgetting that, like, way too often. And forgetting that actually makes you unable to get the sin amount that we would like. Now you might be thinking, Sniper, Wilfred is not a mage. Why are you spell reinforcing him? Well, that is because the Plume abilities that we get are actually their effectiveness is dependent on the mag stat. So, for example, his move, Gleipnir's Bonds, which paralyzes all non-leader enemies. So the higher my magic stat is, the more likely I am to stun an enemy. And it looks like we got everything, so that's really good. So yeah, just because your turn starts with Gwendol, you really get the urge to just dash forward and just, like, do this fight the intended way, but really just do not do that. It is very bad for your run. I've had a lot of occasions where my run just died out of nowhere. We're also just gonna casually plume him. This man gives us a very good ability.
Unto me thy power yield.
What's happening to me?
I love this. I love it when it audio glitches. I don't know why it happens, but somehow when the music, like, transitions from one to another, the voice audio is actually, like, bugs out for a small second, and it causes one of those stutters. So with him Plume that Might Reinforce, we should be able to get, like, more than 75% of our health after it goes to 0. And that gives us the 150% reward, which is the Art of Transposition. We'll be needing that in a fight later on. So yeah, that was Lise. Very, very hard boss. You press Y twice, you're done.
Could do with a swig after that.
So yeah, basically in this cutscene that we're gonna skip right now, Gwendol dies. He gives us a good ability, which is completely fine. And we get to slowly anger the gods, basically letting them know of our presence. If you plume too many characters, they will actually, like, come down, give you an almost unwinnable combat, and just give you a bad ending. And even if you somehow manage to beat that combat, the scene will still play for some reason, and you will still, like, get your own game over, which is the something that we know as the bad ending. This should be fine. So now with in the other cutscene, you might be noticing, why is Lisa in our party? Well, in that cutscene, Rosia tries to save Lise somehow. We don't know why. And Lise just completely backstabs and kills her. It's pretty neat, honestly. So what Gwendol gave us on his Plume ability is Veyer's Warcry. This gives all of our characters instant death on their effects for 3 turns, and instant death is pretty fast. So what it does is when it procs,
Always the weak of blood.
their HP gets depleted to 0 on the first hit. All other subsequent hits will do the same damage. And that is dependent on your max stat. And since we have 2 mages, well, their max stat is pretty high, so it usually just procs and kills them. Wilfred's attack also tends to proc instant death a lot. His magic stat growth is actually that one of a mage instead of a swordsman. So his sword attacks just tend to cause a instant death every now and then, saving you some time in the combat. Also, if the chat has any questions, host, feel free to relay them to me. Or if you have any donations or anything to speak of, you can go right ahead.
I think I managed to work up a sweat.
We sadly don't have any donations, but I can tell you a few things. First of all, if you're a Twitch Prime user, you can consider using your free subscription token right here on the ESA channel. You will get access to both ESA and BSG emotes and support both events. Also, during the entire event, if you donate more than €5, you will be entered into a giveaway for 10 Action Hand gift codes on Steam, kindly donated to us by True Black Shark.
So yeah, instant death is still fast.
Think I managed to
So
work
the
up a
reason we
sweat.
walk up one spot with Lise there, for some reason the swordsman, even the swordswoman, even though she can attack Lise from the side, she always walks up in front of her, making her unable to stun the character. It's just a consistency thing, but they add up really fast. His route can actually be pushed to a very low time, I feel. I feel like a sub 150 would be very much possible. And everything above, below that would require a lot of like risky strats. Which is kind of the point where I want to be at some point. But really not, because of all the risks the route takes and the amount of runs you can actually finish. Also, for some reason, that archer attacks Loxwell in his range instead of outranging him because he is an archer. I don't know why. The AI in this game tends to be very funny sometimes. Ah, we got lucky. Heck yeah. So yeah, Wilfred's stat as a mage is pretty neat.
Firestorm!
And yeah, that should be this entire fight, which is the last fight of chapter
Think I
3.
managed to work up a sweat.
In chapter 4, the next fight, we will actually not get a Realm Stalker. The first fight of every chapter is always Realm Stalker free, so we don't have to care about Sin on the final fight of every chapter. Which is very comfortable. Probably has saved a lot of routing issues for us. So yeah, Elise just joins us. The gods are like giving us this cutscene. Basically saying that, hey, you're on this path now. Good luck. And because we plumed 2 characters, we actually went down to the sea path. This does a few things. Mainly it changes Wilfred's quotes post-combat. Lore-wise, he's become slightly psychotic and like fueled by rage because he's plumed a bunch of friends. And he's just become a complete sociopath. But as much of a sociopath as he is, he still encounters 2 characters, which are August and Reinhild. They're an old couple. They just lost one of their children to combat. They have also been taken by the Valkyrie, and they would also love to take their revenge. So the reason I'm saving here, there's a lot of shopping to do. There's a lot of menuing to do. And right after that menuing, we actually get into one of the most random combats in the game. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. And if you're planning to pick up this game, you're going to have to really learn this fight the most. There's a lot that can go wrong out of nowhere. That's what I need. So we're going to get a lot of items here. And I need one more Sacred Javelin. That should be it. This should be Lease, and this should be Loxwell. So there's a lot of menuing to do. We bought a lot of things, we're using a lot of things. One of those things is Defiance. Defiance makes it so that in combat, you will no longer evade attacks, but the damage you take from them is significantly reduced. I think it is halved, if I remember correctly. And we also see that we got Stalking. Stalking is actually very useful in multiple parts of the run. We'll be seeing it used a good bit. Sepguard goes on Lease. Dashing goes on Lease. Transposition goes on Lease. And then Frigid Damsel. I think I have everything. We'll see in a bit. So we're also going to be using silence checks. Basically, those checks are 1 status prevention. They basically make us immune to a certain status, and those are really, really, really needed in this run. So that would be... So silencing is a very bad status ailment that we can randomly get from one of the enemies here. It makes a spellcaster unable to cast their spells, and also makes Wilfred unable to use his special abilities. So we're gonna need to be able to use them throughout the run. We need this one as well. Did I set everything? I did. Good. And now let's see if this one goes well first try. I would really love if that happened. This fight can take a very long time. This fight, I think, still takes about 12 minutes, making it the longest fight in the game by quite the margin.
Take this!
And of course we're going to employ risky strats, because risky strats are fast. I'm going to do it once just to see if all goes well. So the first thing that can go wrong, and I'm probably going to jinx it, is that Loxwell with his Sacred Javelin can stun this guy, which luckily didn't happen. So the reason we used it as a field spell is because we can target this wall and then hit the enemy. And we're actually also going to have Wilfred use instant death, and we're going to have some fun counter fights. And while that happens, if the host has anything to say, feel free.
First of all, I should remind you to use the spell Reinforce. So I hope you haven't forgotten that yet.
I hadn't forgotten.
Also, I want to thank ESA for supporting the event and for allowing us to stream on their channel for the first time. To provide us with additional equipment as well as experience and knowledge. So thank you very much, ESA.
You can also get a quick shout out on this monitor right in front of me. Like, it is actually baffling how little the input delay is. Like, these ViewSonic monitors, like, they're actually really good. So there's a bunch of things that can happen from here. Lease can still very much die. We hope that we do not get sight stunned. And it looks like we got lucky. So if she gets sight stunned, she can no longer counterattack and no longer kill the swordsman. If that happens and the brigand attacks her, there's a good chance that she dies. But if she kills this this swordsman, she will always level up and heal the full. So it's kind of a risk we take, but it actually saves about 1.5 turns and about a minute. So it's always worth going for it. And if it doesn't work, then oh well. Ooh, that's kind of meh. Yeah, at least he targeted a mage, but most of the enemies can randomly sap power you. It reduces your attack stat by, I think, 20%. Wow. Really? So they've targeted both the mages, which is pretty good, but their movement is kind of off. Apparently also somehow they can guard reinforce. Ugh. And this is where it kind of gets scary. Oh, it's the best course of action here. Okay, that won't reach. So yeah, that old lady over here, she is Reinhild. She is actually the single most broken character in the game. Her multipliers are insane. She's an archer with the attack stat growth of a warrior, which have the highest attack stat growth in the game.
I never miss.
And she is wielding a ballista. Like, come on. Like, how does it get any better than an old lady wielding a ballista? Like, it is actually, like, incredibly powerful. Like, I cannot even fathom how heavy that thing must be. And she just, like, fires it all willy-nilly. Her final attack, or Soul Crush, is also, like, very, very decent. Has a good final hit, has a good bunch of hits, and fills the gauge pretty well. It's kind of your powerful character as a way to make your playthrough easier, I guess. Yeah, that's good. Can I get everyone in this screen? I should be able to. Yes, this should work. There's a lot of things that can happen in this fight. You have to think actively a lot. Oh, didn't get it? I always try to attack them with Reinhild first, just so we don't have to go through the casting animation. Saves a little time, but if it doesn't work, oh well.
Was it good for you?
This fight is actually like just improvisation. There's a ton of things that can and have already happened in this fight that we've never seen before. The worst part is that can happen though is that the first enemy you hit with Sacred Javelin gets stunned. That means he cannot do overworld movement, and we have to hit him to aggro him from there. So if he's stunned, we basically have to walk all the way up to him, which takes, I think, 2 to 3 extra turns, and then just randomly kill him without the help of our instant death. Speaking of instant death, though, this guy is in range of Reinhild, so we're gonna have to hope to just hit the instant death roll. It's a pretty good roll. I think it's like 80% or something, and we get 2 attacks. Yeah, there we go.
Is there time for a donation?
Go right ahead.
We got €2 from Nelsala saying, I had some money left on PayPal, so I guess donating for such a cause is worthwhile, but damn did I have a hard time with Valkyrie profile. Seeing it run is nice. Thank you very much for that kind donation.
I think I cannot kill him because he has the thing up. Yeah, I'm just gonna have to take a few hits here. That's fine. I should survive everything the vampire throws at me, and if one character dies, one Union Plume can easily be used to reduce all the hits. And since the vampire attack locks well, I think I should be fine no matter what happens. That guard reinforced on the vampire is actually the worst enemy to get guard reinforced. He already has very high base resistances, and trying to capitalize on that, we usually just kill him with magic. But I feel like we're gonna have to even might reinforce Reinhild in order to make up for this. Like, he actually takes no damage anymore. 500 resist at this point in the game is really, really high.
Might reinforce.
Bring them down.
Awaken. Tidal wave.
So I'm actually going to try and increase the combo meter as much as possible between these Soul Crushes. Every single hit you do increases the damage by give or take 1% for each hit. So just to optimize the damage we tend to use Reinhild's Lost. That Vampire taking 2 Soul Crushes is also quite heavy already. You can get it in 1, but it requires you to get a stun setup, which we could not from this position. These armors also, they have a small chance to block, but whenever they're hit with a magic attack, their defenses just completely drop sometimes. We're gonna abuse that to the most of our extent. Also, if they randomly freeze, they can also no longer block, which both Loxwell and Lisa's attack can do.
Behind any great house, there lies a
Also, funnily enough, even though Reinhild are a couple and is a married woman, married to August, which we also have in our party, their voice actors are also a married couple. August's voice actor has been a voice actor before, and especially for this game, he asked his wife to join the voice acting as well, and she did. So we actually, I think it's like pretty cute that the married couple is also a married couple IRL. Just pretty wholesome overall. And in such a grim game as this, like, it's just the very nice details that do it. So we're gonna have to face ourselves another Realm Stalker here. With the new route, there's actually like no way the route around not getting a Realm Stalker in this fight. So kind of unfortunate as is, but it's fine. So it should have everything, yeah. There's a lot of things in the menuing to forget, especially like at this hour and me being awake for so long. So with everyone being sick, there's a lot of people watching over them right now, and they're actually like doing God's work. We basically have 3 people on call like 24/7 right now, just to contain the disease as much as possible. Like the other people that are doing this are like very much just insane for what they're pulling off so far. Like, we've seen shifts of 16 hours for just like watching over them and being available, and them being able to stick around is just incredible.
What is this power?
So this is the time we use stock. We actually use stock on Darius here to get the same movement from this golem every time. We kind of want him to cross the river, and we want at least one of these two to be able to be hit by 1 spell. It looks like we got the single best pattern from them so far. Just very, very lucky. So Elise is gonna walk forward now. This Brigand also has a chance to just engage on Loxwell and just being stupid. If he attacks Loxwell, we counter him. If we don't, we do it like this. If he actually engages Loxwell, we can also spell reinforce Wilfred and make the Gleipnir's bonds more effective. because of the spell reinforce that we can use. Sadly, that now that Lise already took her turn on killing him, we actually have to use the reinforce, or we cannot use the reinforce. So we're just gonna have to be lucky. Usually that will always work out with Will's magic stat. The worst thing that can happen is that the Realm Stalker also gets paralyzed. That makes the movement a little bit more awkward, but usually they'll end up being fine. This is also where the range of Sacred Javelin comes in again. We can actually use that to cross the river, so we kill the Golem and the Archeress in one go. If the Archeress moves forward, we can still kill the Swordsman. If they both move forward, we only have to kill the Golem, and this mission just... If that happens, this mission becomes really risky because Fiona can just randomly fall over before anything can be done about it. Also, we want Darius to be unstocked before next turn because we will be entering the aggro range of the Realm Stalker. So if we enter the aggro range while stalked, he will still be aggroed, but he cannot see any other ally but Fiona. Meaning that he will just wreck Fiona on the spot, and there's nothing we can do about it. We've had some very awkward moments having this happen in routing. So usually we just unstock Darius on this fight. But since the Brigand walked up to Darius on turn 1, he actually unstocks on that one.
Always the reek of blood.
Also, this song is like the best in the game. I'm just gonna let you enjoy it. Just kidding, it's Tri-Ace. Enemy song, let's go. It's kind of a feels bad. This song is like an actual blast. And this is what we like to call getting Tri-Aced, where they like reset the music every time that you re-enter it.
I long for the peace of the shadows.
Take this!
So we're moving specifically like this, just so the Realm Stalker can barely not reach us, and next turn we can just easily reach him with Loxwell.
I never miss.
So right now we're gonna get Loxwell into range of both the Realm Stalker and the Brigand. Darius is gonna have to engage on the Realm Stalker. We should be easily able to kill him. I think it's still a range, but it's a very, very favorable one. Also, the damage of the spell is increased. I think it is increased because he is silenced. I'm not entirely sure. Like somehow, whenever he doesn't get, when he does get paralyzed, the damage seems to be a lot lower for some reason. I don't know the cause. It might be because spell reinforce runs out, but I'm not entirely sure. It's just so rare that you don't really pay attention to it sometimes. Oh, rip. Another thing with running this game is resisting the urge to mash. Like, you sometimes just really want to mash through it just to skip the voice line. And then you accidentally just press any button that just has a character with an attack on it, and you still just accidentally attack him. See, this combat could be over this turn, but it's actually slower if that would happen, because that would be 3 combats where the swordsman over there, he's gonna walk up to Fiona or walk back. Okay, that's the good pattern. So if he had the second best pattern at the very start, he would be slowly walking up towards Fiona. and he just try to attack her, and they'll kill each other in free combats. But having him run up this way makes us able to have Wilfred to have enough AP to use the instant death from Vayers. And from there, we just have Lee's kill him. It's actually slightly faster. It's just that combats are just so very, very long. And it's usually just not worth to have them happen.
Frigid damsel.
And with this fight done, we actually end chapter 4. In the next chapter, we will not get any other new characters, but we do get to unlock the few changes we can do to like giving Reinhild dashing and everything. We also get a very special bow from getting 200% sin, but what that does, we'll see the next fight. It is a very broken mechanic in the game, and it's also why Reinhild gets even more busted than she already is. So yeah, this is kind of where, in the lore, the entire kingdoms just start a complete war. And the path decides who you are joining in their campaign. So since we are on the worst path, we get to join Langray in his claim for power. But not before we shop a little, because shopping is good. So we're actually going to get a Dark Savior Codex here. That's one of the other spells we use. There's 6 spells in the game. We use 4 in the speedrun. Each of them has a unique grant magic to them as well. Dark Savior is actually the strongest spell in the game. It has the best multipliers, and it has the best multiplier on the grant magic as well. It actually does a heck ton of damage. Not as much as Reinhild, but it's still like pretty insane. Oh, let me see. I need to use a lot right here. There's a lot of menuing going before this fight, so if you have anything to say, then feel free and just go ahead.
I actually have a question for you. What are you doing in these menus right now?
I'm using these inventory. You actually get a few arts. Those give you a certain skill for your characters. And I change their equipment and attack orders every now and then. Think I should have everything? Oh no, I do not. I need Dark Savior on lease. So I'm basically setting up all the combat-related things that I should be doing. Did I set the... No, I did not. Okay. So this should be it, I think. Wait, Darius gets the Damascus sword. I was wrong. There's a lot of things to forget here. It is very frustrating. So we actually set counterattack on August as well. Why that is relevant, you'll see next fight. But this is the first fight with the Ophinus Bow, and the Ophinus Bow has a very interesting property to it. So what it does is it copies the damage number of every move, of every single damage hit you do, and it applies it again for the same amount of damage. However, because of the way that instant death works, the instant death damage, which is basically the remaining part of their health bar, gets multiplied as well. So that value gets copied, and you actually get 100 sin instantly because you fill the entire sin gauge in one go. And that makes it very, very easy to get enough sin on the next few fights.
Was it good for you?
And it's also why we are going to be spell reinforcing Reinhild a lot. But yeah, this is the second to last chapter in the game. I think there's 7 fights in this chapter. All of them have their own pitfalls. and all of them are kind of broken in half by Reinhild. So, like for example, this one, this archers over there is just like trying to beat us, but I mean we're wielding a ballista. We just instantly kill her, get 100 sin. This is going to be a very much returning theme.
10 of you would not suffice to
So in the old route, we already knew about this trick, but this was a very unoptimized fight. We actually cut off 2 turns from just this fight alone. Like, just this reroute has just been completely insane. Like, this man, I don't know if you're in chat, but Huang, if you're in chat, like, holy nut, man, you're doing so much work in this game. It is incredible. Like, this guy actually knows every single little thing about this game. And he's also been the major contributor of the reroute. Like, he's been sitting on tech for 3 years waiting for someone to pick the run back up. Like, that is dedication. For that, he deserves a big shout out. Oh, rip.
Frigid damsel.
I was hoping to get the instant death from Wilfred, but didn't get lucky. Oh well.
I think I managed to work up a sweat.
Like, I actually cannot believe how busted Reinhild is in this playthrough. Like, she has everything going for her, and then, like, for some reason, the instant death thing with the Ophinus bow just makes it even worse. It's just really ridiculous how strong she gets. So kids, never mess around with old ladies. They might just get their ballista. Just don't do it, okay? Always say yes to grandma's cookies.
hunger for battle remains.
So yeah, we actually got 150%. We don't need to, but if we get it, it's nice because we get a few golden eggs, and golden eggs gives us a little stat boost on every single stat, but it is a random number between 1 and 10. So it basically makes Wilfred just a little bit more accurate on those instant deaths or these other skills that he tends to use. So next up, we're gonna see why we put in counterattack. I think Cyver already knows what he has to say. I'm gonna recommend the chat to do the same. If you ever see August and you hear him say "stand and fight," please just put in all caps in chat. It is a thing we do in my chat as well. Just because of how good the line is, really. Like it is probably one of the best lines in this game. It's very, very Mortal Kombat-esque. Just because of how raw August's voice is. So just along the lines of most of this game, we're gonna start off with instant death. Instant death is still fast, and there's a lot of things in range already for us. And we're actually gonna spell reinforce Reinhild just to make it more likely for her to hit the instant death. So she has both of these Lizard Lords in range from that exact spot, and we're actually able to reach both of them. And as it turns out, Lizard Lords are kind of weak in terms of their magic resist, so instant death is almost guaranteed to proc.
10 of you would not suffice to open your head!
I guess that's something I haven't even told yet. So, you just heard Reinhild use that line. Sometimes when characters use a line, it is an indication of a critical hit happening. Critical hits increase the damage ever so slightly. I think it's 50% or something. Somewhere between 25 and 50%. They can be kind of random. They can completely change the outcome of a fight, as you've seen in Fight 1-2. Yeah, because we have August here. He's not actually really useful in many of the fights, but in this fight, his 5 tiles of movement make him really good. So we might as well just plume him on the fight and make maximum use of him. Also, we're gonna interrupt this line. So using a voice line overwrites any other one that's currently playing, so... August's line being very long just gets completely skipped because Lise uses a dash. There's a very specific reason why we use one tile to dash with Lise. We actually need her to be in range of the only creature that isn't an undead. Or well, isn't an undead that can just be easily killed with the magic range, which is that Ciliano over there, that bird. Also, chat, get ready. Get your stand and fights ready. So yeah, when you evade an attack, you actually have a small chance to get a window to counterattack. That does a lot of damage to them and basically skips us needing to do our combat, basically saving about 10 to 15 seconds per fight. We're gonna do that another time though. There's another armor. He'll still try and attack us. For some reason, counterattack only does work when the enemy is in your attack range as well. So sadly, we cannot counterattack the bird, which will always attack our August here. So we're gonna just move August over here to lure the armor in, and we're gonna use Lise to actually just straight up destroy this Ciliano with instant death. High magic stats are nice, and being a mage really helps. I don't think I've ever seen this range or this attack not proc instant death, just because of how insanely good the Eve Receptor is. So get ready for your round 2s of stand and fight. This armor can actually not make us evade, but it's fine. It usually happens. And he does, I think, 3 attacks, so we should be able to get at least 1 in.
Stand and fight.
Good thing this one killed in one go. The first one is actually a very unfavorable range to not kill him on the first hit. You do somewhere between 3850 and 4000 damage with your attacks. I think it's like a 10% chance to not get the range. See, this demon somehow never gets aggroed by us, even though we're standing in his range. Which is completely fine, because he has very slow animations, and getting to kill him before he does that is very, very fast, so... Also, this demon, he drops a very good weapon for August. Good thing we just plumed him, because we have no use for that weapon at all. He is the only pugilist in the game, and we just got a really good weapon for him. It's fine. So we're just gonna report back to the castle that we killed the demons over here. We're gonna discuss some military strats on what we're going to do for our campaign of actually just murdering everyone. And this campaign also includes one of the riskier missions. So we're going to have to save before this. This is one of the few safety saves I still make. This fight is just very much inconsistent, and you can just completely collapse the run. And while I'm doing the last bit of menuing, if the host has anything to say, feel free, go right ahead.
We just got a 25 € donation from Anonymous without a comment, so thank you very much for that donation.
So we're just gonna set Lisa's attack to Dark Savior. It wasn't really needed. It has a slightly slower animation than Frigid Damsel as well, which is why we keep it this long. But yeah, we need the damage in this fight to make the Sin gain a lot more lenient, because it is actually very much possible that we get to go on a very, very tight Sin route. It's like the other two fights. Turn 1, we just start our instant death. The first few enemies are really clumped together, so just gonna have to kill them all one by one. Let's see if I can get the Reinhild range. Come on. Yeah. So Wilfred currently has the Shackle of Sin. That gives us a 20% boost to our Sin gain from every single fight. And that thing is absolutely required to get the 300.
I think I managed to work up a sweat.
100% of the time at least. So we miss a few instant deaths with Reinhild. Getting this Sin is very, very difficult. Also, this is our first instant of Snow Tiles. For every non-dash related movement, Snow Tiles actually take up 2 of your movement points, basically. So having only 3 movement on some of the characters make it so they can only move 1 tile per turn. Heck yeah. Okay, so getting this range actually makes us safe for the Sin route, which is very good. There's a very good chance you miss the first attack with Reinhild, and from there you have to use the spell from Lise and then the last attack from Reinhild just to try and get as much Sin as possible. So up next, a few very bad things can happen still. There's one thing with the warrior that's next to us, and there's one with the mages. Each of them has a very bad pattern they can have. And they can also randomly use their Grant Magic. If that is getting used, we might very well lose Lise here. There's a backup for when the last one does it, but there isn't a backup for the first. So we might be in some small trouble. Shouldn't be too bad though. There's also one more thing she can do, but it's the most common thing that happens, so I'm actually gonna wait with saying it. The pattern is good though. Okay, we're good. Nobody got frozen. So she can actually freeze both of those characters, meaning that we cannot get in proper range of this mage without healing Lise, which puts her to major risk. And we also get the good pattern from the warrior. Amazing. So he can either engage in front of you or from the side. If he is from the side and he side stunts you and one character is frozen, you can also need to waste a turn, meaning that you cannot kill everyone with the instant death enabled. We're getting some really good luck throughout the run though. I'm actually quite baffled by it. I think that actually makes us able to do something very good, which is having us able to use the guard potions that we have on Lise. So this is just a small safety measure. It makes Lise just a little bit more resistant to all the attacks that might get thrown at her. It's only relevant in the bad scenarios, but having it there is just really nice. And with the other 3, we can just fairly easily kill this sorceress, so we should just be fine. Please kill. Oh yeah, and we even got the fast kill. That's amazing. This fight usually takes a Soul Crusher too, if it doesn't go all too well, and the instant death doesn't proc on anyone. It is very rare, but it does happen. Usually we just get the attack with Reinhild and we're fine.
Take this.
So now that sorceress that you can see on the right side of the screen, she is the most commonly used, the Grant Magic. If she does, we'll move on to the backup path. It has been routed around because we have just seen it be pretty common recently. But we'll see what happens. With the guard potion, it's usually just a little safer as well. Wow. That is basically the perfect fight. That is pretty nice. See, I'm not getting the Grant. If she would have used Grant Magic, I would have just killed the archer and then moved up with the other characters in order to eventually revive Lise and make a few attacks on the other two. Because she wouldn't be able to survive the attacks afterwards, so she'll just be engaged on again by the swordswoman and she'd die. Which is completely fine because they are pretty close to the rest of our characters. So the swordswoman might have engaged us, but we're actually going to kill the archer here. The archer will actually move back an extra spot, which is out of your range. And it will just be an extra engage for no reason at all. And we're just trying to prevent as many as possible.
Was it good for you?
So we're just going to wait for the turn to start and then just instantly kill this swordswoman. And that will be the fight.
We'll be seeing you again.
See, that's another example of the crit line. Some of the characters have very
worse,
nice
but not
crit
much.
lines. Too bad we actually don't get to hear the best line of the game. You have to unlock Foxnell, which I think is on the B path in Chapter 4. Not entirely sure. This guy's got some great lines. He's basically the schmuck sorcerer of this game. Also just gonna make a safety save here. This fight can wildly go wrong out of nowhere for some reason. And this is one of the fights I also have a pretty big tendency to mess up out of nowhere. So this is where we encounter the Margrave, which is another one launching his campaign. He's actually trying to get the two princes to just calm the heck down, basically. And well, if you're on the rampage and like when you're responsible for a prince, we might as well just like get him out of the way because everything is a threat to him. And we're basically hired for gold, which is completely fine. So we just used the expert's experience and the golden eggs. Expert's experience gives 30,000 XP, basically upping Wilfred, I think, 4 levels in this section. He always appreciates the extra stat and magic, and the golden eggs basically do the same.
Spell reinforced.
Like every little point of magic makes it likelier to hit Gleipnir spawns. It actually is noticeable sometimes. If you get very bad rolls, one of these this queen pin over there will actually not get stunned and attack Reinhild. It is very rare. I've only seen it happen when I got the lowest roll twice on the golden eggs, but who knows? Also, Langry really loves wasting my time. He also gets his own attack. He usually just attacks this queen pin a bunch of times, really just effectively doing nothing except waste our time. If he kills her, he wastes another, like, 15 or so seconds, but we're just gonna hope it doesn't happen.
Might reinforce.
So we're gonna play with the aggro of the characters a bit, which is why we're moving Darius this far up. Because you might have remembered us getting transposition. Well, this is the fight we're actually going to use it on. So transposition, as the name would imply, replaces your character's position with the one of an enemy. So we're basically gonna put the Margrave right in the middle of us, and we're just gonna wheel on him until he falls over. He's an old man, he's pretty brittle. even though he has probably one of the best voices in the game, as well as one of the best attacks. Sadly, we can't use him until the post-game, which has the Seraphic Gate. That is unlocked by completing the story in its entirety on each path at least once. So once that is unlocked, you unlock a bunch of very hard challenges.
Spell reinforced.
They're really recommended to do them. There's 10 rounds of the dungeon, each one becoming harder than the last. And they eventually become really, really tough. But you do get a lot of characters that are used in the main cast and in the cast of Valkyrie Profile 1 and 2, which are released on the PlayStation. It's pretty cool to see a nice nod. And it also has a nod of, I think it is a Triace or a Square Enix thing. Gabriel Celeste is also in that game. I think it's a Triace Easter egg. He's in a lot of games for no reason. We don't know why. He just is.
Take this.
So we're gonna specifically move Darius in the back of him, not in front. We kind of want to increase our hit chance as much as possible, and the position in relation to your enemy actually determines that.
Your time has come.
Take this.
Finish! Dance macabre!
Oh, not even killing.
You
Wow.
did well.
There we go. I could have went a lot smoother. But oh well, dead is dead. Like, getting him in one round is fine. I kind of messed up. I should be getting the crystals on Reinhild as much as possible because she is our main damage dealer. But oh well. Also, I heard you like Realm Stalkers. The next fight, we actually do not care about Realm Stalkers at all. It's a kill the leader mission. We kill the leader, we move on. It's easy as that. However, it does have some pretty tricky movement, and it has some slight chance of failure. It is also the single most failed mission on my part due to execution mistakes. So the split is actually called Don't Forget the Veyers, Idiot, for me. I tend to forget the Veyers a lot, which is the instant death ability that we unlocked. We really need that one to work out every single time. So there's a very slight chance that this mission still fails and we'll have to do it again. It requires Darius to not proc instant death like 5 times in a row. I have yet to see it, but if it has to happen, I don't care if it's here. I think Twitch chat deserves some laughs anyway in this very grim game. So we're gonna start by using Gleipnir's Bonds and just walking forward a lot. So we're gonna stun all the enemies, just get as little aggro as possible. So usually, back in the day, we actually used to use a Union Plume strat here as well. It had the same premise, where we just use instant death to kill the leader. But in that small corridor between those two houses on the right screen right now, that's where we used to use the Union Plume. So we sacrificed Loxwell. He went all the way back, and then we just Union Plumed him over the wall. It actually turns out it is faster to walk around using stalk and dash. So that's the new strat. So yeah, that Realm Stalker is going to get aggro, but since we have Stalk, we don't really have to care. And we also have one more spell potion left. We're actually going to use that on Darius just to increase his chances of instant killing the leader. We're also gonna stock this turn in order to not have the Realm Stalker aggro on Darius. This also, like, very much confuses the AI, making him move downwards for, like, no reason at all. Like, I don't know what causes it. It's like he's scared of himself. Because he is, after all, just a reflection of Darius. So we're also gonna stalk and walk away with Reinhild. This is to prevent the aggroing the enemies as much as possible. And we're gonna move Darius right over here, just so we can aggro the sorcerer a little. And I'm gonna need some Bless RNG for this instant death. It's pretty common, but I feel like I have to jinx something in this marathon. Like, something bad has to happen. On. Hell yeah. There we go. Got it on the first hit. It's not uncommon to miss it. The first hit is the most likely to proc it as well, just because it has the highest attack multiplier.
To see another dark day.
But whenever it doesn't happen, it's just really depressing. See, again, we don't have enough sin. Again, we don't care. It is another kill the leader mission because we are sieging the castle after all. This is... Wait a minute. This is Darius and this is Reinhild. So this is another fight we just completely cheese. This fight is actually was pretty difficult for me casually until I discovered that I just had to kill the leader. So we're gonna move in range of a lot of enemies. We don't really care. Stunning all the enemies is still very much a potent tool.
Spell reinforce.
We even have a really good magic roll. Usually I see 465 around this point. So that Realm Stalker is slowly gonna walk up. Again, we really don't care. This Swordswoman should fall before all of that happens. Might need a Soul Crush, might need a second combat, even though all of these are pretty uncommon. Let's just chain them. Let's give Reinhild the biggest chance of killing. This might actually kill.
Do you not?
So getting 2 Soul Crushes is actually faster than getting the second combat, but looks like we were unlucky. That's completely fine. She's very low health. We shouldn't even need a Soul Crush on the second combat, which is still very much fast. This might be a range. I'm just gonna take the safe route. Oh, we're good. See, there's only 2 more fights to go. One of them actually has the second best song in the game, but we won't get to hear it because it is a boss theme, and all bosses don't tend to last all that long in this game, which is quite sad. So yeah, we're in the throne room. We're gonna try and kill the current crown prince. And for that, we're not gonna use Darius. Darius is slow. He takes aggro and he takes turns. We don't need him to take turns.
Spell reinforce.
See, this fight, this movement depends on what Realm Stalker gets stunned. If both don't get stunned, we might be losing a little bit of time, like a minute or so, but should be fine. And looks like the top one was stunned. If the bottom one got stunned, we just mirror the movement, and we're fine in the end anyway. It still takes the same amount of turns nonetheless. This movement is just very much slightly faster. So yeah, sadly we will be saying goodbye to our granny over here, but we're gonna show her the power of not accepting grandma's cookies. And yeah, she gets really dangerous.
Since such power graced these old bones.
Like Reinhilda's strong enough on her own, but with the plume she just goes completely out of whack. Like, it is insane how much damage she does now. Like, we don't even need instant death anymore. We just have a lady that just one-shots everything in her sight. Best song in the game. Let's go.
Off with your head!
Easy fight.
My hunger for battle remains.
It's actually sad because the song like takes off right after we kill him. So we don't even get to hear the best part. The track is called Obligation of Havoc, by the way, so if you want to look it up on YouTube for the complete version, go right ahead. It is definitely worth a good listen. So yeah, with the king dead, they actually kill each other right on the spot, and we have to behead the king because he is in a very much big pain. And with that, we have actually collected enough sin to make the sword the Angel Slayer, making us able to kill the Valkyrie. So we're just gonna have a good time killing her. I think we should be able to save from here, right? Yeah. Rip. Oh, crud. Oh, well, this might be fun. We might be doing some fights again if this goes bad. Shouldn't go bad, honestly. Have the menu more carefully, I guess. So we're gonna equip the power bangle just to maximize the damage output that we can do. We are actually gonna reduce Darius' attacks by 1 by using the S-Stock. But that does make his final, finishing strike a lot stronger. Yeah, this should be everything. I'm just gonna make an extra check just because I did not save before this fight like an idiot. So yeah, the main goal of this, the main flavor of this fight is because this is the band ending. We're being reminded of all the friends we killed, and they're basically there to fight against us with the Valkyrie. His magic stat is really good. Whoa. Anything over 500 is like considered really good for this fight. Getting this much is actually like borderline insane. I think we got some very good rolls. So yeah, this is where the game kind of teases me. We route in such a way that we don't have enough AP to recover the characters from death. So this is basically a one-way ticket, and the game just gives us a Union Plume. Because why not? It's like here's your backup strat that doesn't work. Enjoy. Actually got a decent attack roll as well. 1038 is pretty average, but it's good enough to work. So we're gonna mess around with the Valkyrie aggro a bit by stalking with Darius. There's something in her sight, she doesn't know what it is, so the AI gets confused. Always lovely when that happens. Well, we're just gonna buff our entire party to insane levels. I'm also gonna be turning the camera after this turn. And we have this one might potion that I in the start said I was gonna use for the last fight. I actually am. We need all the stat boosts we can get from this fight, and we need all the execution for this fight. So this fight is technically a guaranteed kill. However, if I mess up at any point and do not get a second gem, I might very well be getting demolished. See, I'm gonna just twist the camera. Gonna use volleys right here. Make Wilfred as powerful as he can get. We're gonna Sap Guard the Valkyrie, which is a spell we bought somewhere in Chapter 4. It is actually just kind of useless throughout the game, but for this boss specifically, we actually need it to kill her. Bless RNG. So this should exactly get us to the Soul Crush of Darius. So Darius is going to up the combo chain as much as possible. We're going to try and squeeze in an attack with Wilfred. We didn't, so we used the Soul Crush of Lise.
No. Meteor Swarm.
And for some reason, Meteor Swarm is a really funny Soul Crush. If you skip the cutscene, the Meteor never spawns for some reason, so it just like doesn't appear on screen. So it looks like a lot of emptiness falling down on your opponent. It always like looked fun to me. Yeah, let's go. And that is the final boss of the game. Time is coming up. I will let you know when it happens. It is on the very fade out after we hit the last A button. This time is really solid. Wow. And time. Wow. That is the exact same time as I got in my practice run. That is quality right there. That is that's consistency. So this is that was a very good run. I'm just gonna let the credits play out for a while. I'm gonna have to shout out a few people. One of them being Dragon Dark, who is the one that whose runs got me back into this game. I actually wanted to speedrun it for a while. Came across his run and was like, I can do this too. This is amazing. And also a shout out to Huang, which is the guy who did the major bit of the reroute for this game. Like, he is so knowledgeable about anything that this game has to offer. And I'm gonna look to him as well for trying to get a route of the best ending, which requires us to not plume. So that's going to be a lot of fun to route. And lastly, I'm gonna thank everyone in the Valkyrie profile running Discord. It's currently linked on the speedrun.com forums as well if you're interested in either picking up this run or just having a good talk with the runners, why we're loving this game, anything you really want. And with that, and one more shout out as well to the entire First Aid team. These guys have been pulling mad hours to actually keep everyone healthy here. Like, we've had like every single one of us had at least one 16-hour shift of non-stop looking at people and being available, and they have actually just done the God's work, and I'm very thankful to have a team like that. And also, the next run, I think, is Millennium Racer. Has the donation incentive been met, by the way?
The donation incentive has not been met.
So chat, you heard it. If you really want to see the incentive being met, be sure to get your donations in. I will pass the mic over to the host, and I wish everyone that has still to run a very good marathon. And yeah, I'll see you guys later.